Hey guys, Panda here, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I guess we're gonna talk about old people. Actually, okay, how about instead we talk about parenting? That makes more sense, doesn't it? Parenting and old people go together, and everyone's just a sad old white bastard at the end of the day. No matter what their race, no matter what their gender, they're all just sad old and white. They all got the energy. We're all bad, you know? We all suck. So, let me establish a few things before I get into the great topics that we'll be discussing today. First of all, changed my setup. Second of all, got a new computer. Guess that probably should have been mentioned before. That's why I changed my setup. Hopefully, better quality, everything. That's nice. My microphone's the same, so audio is still probably going to be a bit off. Don't have soundproofing, whatever, who cares. And trying to do, like talk about different things. Talk about things better, more well thought out and planned. That's why I actually have an idea of a topic for today. So, hopefully with that topic, people are actually interested in listening to this. Now let's talk about that topic. Oh, also I'm playing picross. Topic is parenting, and we're going to talk about parenting. So, in my opinion, because I have such great opinions, in my opinion, parents kinda suck. Now, this is a bit of an odd opinion, but I also don't think it is. So you see, I like to first of all establish, I find it very comedic. Not really comedic, it's like a sad comedic, you know, dark humor. That, like, parents always are like, oh, you know, abortion should be bad and illegal because you're hurting a child, and a child is such a precious life and it's so important. But then when that child is born and they have their own child, they're like, you know what, this is just my object, I can do whatever I want with this. Force my opinions on it, force it to do this and that. Who cares about getting it vaccinated? It can die at age 10, as long as it's not while it's still in the womb. I guess it can die afterwards. That's not fair, that doesn't make sense. And I like that people pretend that they have logic there, when clearly they don't. And also, just don't force your opinions on children. You see, like, the children are like, again, they're not your object. You're just kind of like, it's not slavery here. Like, your child isn't forced to do whatever you want it to do. I mean, it is, because of stupid laws and stuff. But, like, it shouldn't really be that way. I mean, you, as a parent, are there to raise your child with morals and stuff like that. But parents can be, like, wrong. So if they're wrong, then you have to find a way to, like, raise your child. Everyone should have to find a way to raise their child where the child can hear any and all opinions, because that's how it works. Also, that's another thing, you know, stupid parents. I'm getting at Republicans here, if you can't tell. Stupid parents tend to, like, always bicker about, oh, freedom of speech, this and that. I want to be able to say whatever I want. I want to be racist and sexist and homophobic if I want to be. But then, at the same time, when they're raising their kids, and they hear that their kids are, like, hearing things that they don't want them to hear, they're all of a sudden like, no, you're not allowed to hear an opinion that differs from mine? How dare you? And that doesn't make sense, because you would think that you would want your child to hear any and all opinions, because that's how freedom of speech works. You're allowed to hear both sides of the argument, and then come to a conclusion on which one is better. That's just kind of how society's meant to work. And then if you go against that, then you're gonna end up with more and more stupid people. Also, interesting fun little statistic here, people who don't finish school are, like, more likely to have kids and stuff, are more likely to have kids and stuff, and people who have kids early, as teens, are less likely to finish school. So this essentially means that, like, a lack of education is kind of there with having children. So people who have kids are more likely to be uneducated, and thus their kids are more likely to be uneducated. And what this results in is basically an odd little system where, like, we're kind of, okay, so evolution, right? Okay, no matter if you believe in evolution or not, there's small amounts of evolution, and you can't really disagree with that, because there's just, you can't deny it. We have evidence of it. And with that small amount of evolution, it can also kind of happen in like a societal way, like new trends and things, and even in different species, new things become the norm, the usual. Now, what's happening is if you have a bunch of stupid parents raising more stupid kids, then what happens as a result of that is that you have, like, just more stupid kids, which then have more stupid kids. And so you're slowly making society more mindless and more ignorant towards everything. That's just how it works. And we kind of have to, like, counter that. Like, I'm not entirely sure how we could, because, like, okay, you know, I'm gonna say a thing that people are gonna disagree with, and it's fine if you do, to be honest. There's probably a better solution or something that I'm not thinking of, but this is just the way I see it. The way I see it is that we should, like, have some kind of way to limit how many kids people can have. They're doing it in other countries and stuff, like China. Well, China did do it, and then they decided to be retarded again. But, like, you just need to, like, have some kind of way for, like, people to be limited on how many kids they can have, because a lot of times people have too many kids when they can't afford them or can't raise them properly or just aren't good at what they're supposed to do. And so, if that's happening, then there should be a limit there. I'm trying to take guesses on where this is and it's not working well. But like, still, kids should be raised properly in proper homes where they can get a proper education and proper, like, family. And if people can't offer that, then they have to accept that they can't have kids. Because it's not fair that you're putting a child, a life, through that. Which is also where, again, abortion should be more allowed. Because if someone doesn't want a child and they want an abortion, and they're forced to have that child anyways, that child is going to go through a much worse life than if it just ended early on. Like, again, like, would you rather be, like, just murdered right off the start? Or would you rather go through an entire life of torture and torment until you most likely kill yourself, or just are left to suffer for the rest of it? Because that's kind of how it goes. Because, like, again, if someone doesn't want a child and they have to have a child, then they're not going to be happy with that child and they're going to treat that child poorly. And even people who want children can oftentimes treat that child poorly because they don't understand how to be a parent properly. I mean, is there any real way to be a parent properly? No, I don't think anyone's actually a good parent at the end of the day. But, like, we can all do better. And no one seems to try. I mean, no one questions a parent. And people are like, oh, because I'm a parent, I know so much more. Just because you're a parent, or just because you're anything for that matter, doesn't mean that you're suddenly right about things. You can still be wrong, no matter what field you're in, no matter what person you are. You can always be really, really, really wrong. So don't assume that you're always correct about things when there's no real evidence to back that up, just because you're saying, but I have to be right, because I'm this, or I'm that. Because that's not how that works. So, I mean, okay, let's also go into not being able to force your opinions on children. Because here's the thing. You can't raise a child unbiasedly. You can barely even have a conversation with someone unbiasedly. Or, like, when you're talking about important topics. Because bias just kind of slips in. You can't really help that, and I wouldn't expect people to. However, you can try to avoid it. I mean, at least, again, give your child the other options with your little freedom of speech thing. Give your child other options. Let them hear the other side of the story. You see a lot of parents saying things like, oh, my child is, like, listening to, like, democratic values. Or they're listening to, like, gay people. And that's bad, because what if they turn gay or whatever? That doesn't make sense. Your argument doesn't make sense. God, I'm screwing this up. Your argument doesn't make sense, and you're just limiting your child's kind of view of the world. And yes, when you do that, they're more likely to end up like you, which, sure, that's what a lot of parents want, but then don't have a child, because odds are they're not going to end up like you. And, like, that's just not how raising a child works, because, like, I mean, it's unfair, and you're not going to get smarter people that way. But, like, again, you have to hear all sides of the story to get an idea of what story is correct. But then parents are like, oh, school's teaching my child this. How dare they? Oh, school's teaching my child that. Oh, my child has this friend that has this opinion that's against mine, so I'm going to limit my child's view of the world and hide them from everything. Because I don't want them knowing how the real world works. I want them to know how my world works. And that's not how it should be. And then, like, I mean, I think that, like, in a lot of other countries, school is, like, mandated, required, and I think that's how it should be in America, too, but, you know, we like to whine about our freedoms, which, like, okay, actually, now I'm gonna say something probably more controversial than anything I've said in this video. I think freedom is some BS, because, like, listen, yes, freedom's good. We don't want, like, fascism in America. That's not what I'm advocating for here. What I am advocating for is, like, a bit less freedom of certain decisions. You shouldn't be able to decide, oh, I don't want to get vaccinated. You shouldn't be able to decide, oh, I want my child to drop out of school. You shouldn't be able to decide things like this, because you're just hurting the world more. You can hurt yourself in whatever way, like, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. I guess that freedom's allowed. That sounds like I'm talking about self-harm. No, but, like, what I'm saying is that you can be as mindless as you want, but once you start having other people be as mindless as you and start forcing that on them, then that should be not allowed. Which also, on that, you have religion, and, you know, I'm just saying, religion's really forced onto people, because, I mean, I know so many people that are like, oh yeah, you know, my parents just raised me in a way where I was forced to learn about religion, and I was forced to be religious, and this and that shouldn't be allowed. Again, like, if your child decides to be religious later on, good for them. Do you want to teach them about Christianity? Sure, do that, but also teach them at the same time about, like, different faiths, and evolution, and things like that, because that's important for your child to learn. And if you're not doing that, then you're limiting your child's view again, and then you have that bias there. So just avoid that bias at all costs, and things will end out, like, being better overall for you and your child and everyone. Maybe not you, actually, because you're probably so, like, biased that you just want your child to only hear what you want them to hear, but that's not how things work, so you just kind of have to suck it up and deal with it, and if you can't do that, then too bad. But, like, that's just how it should be. There should be more things in place where you're not allowed to tell your child, hey, believe my way, don't believe the other ways. And again, if you're going to have a child, you should be ready for basically anything, because if you're not, then you're gonna struggle a lot. And that's not your child's fault, that's your own fault. And you can't blame your child for being different than you, or even if they have, like, a mental illness or something. Again, not really your child's fault, not your fault either, but still, like, you kind of have to deal with it. Just suck it up and deal with it and raise the child. Like, everyone seems to want a child, and they're always like, oh, wouldn't it be so nice to have a kid, and, like, whatever, and, like, but then when they have a kid, all of a sudden it's like, wow, this child isn't quite what I was expecting. That means it's awful. But no, that's not what it means. It means that you're awful for thinking that whatever child you were gonna have was gonna be, like, the exact same as you. But, like, just deal with it if it's not, because, like, that's most likely what it's gonna be. Like, it's always weird as well, in, like, a lot of shows and stuff, it seems like it's portrayed as, like, hey, the child eventually ends up coming around and doing like what the family wanted them to do. In certain scenarios, other shows are different. I think that like Disney, I guess, kind of does that, where usually the kids end up a bit different, and that's considered okay. But like a lot of shows, especially like I'm gonna say adult-oriented shows, that doesn't mean it's porn, but like a lot of those kind of shows always have the kids being like, oh, I want to be the same as my parents and whatever. Or they might even try doing something else. They might try to have a different life, but then their parents are like, no, you shouldn't. And then suddenly they're like, oh, I realize I shouldn't. I'm kind of talking about Hallmark here, because that's kind of what it's like sometimes. It's like you just end up with like a child that's like, oh, I wanted to go to the big city and be a great like business person and whatever, but then my parents were sad, and so I went back to the frickin' farmland and suddenly realized that farmland is the best. And then that's not exactly how that works in real life, and it shouldn't be shown in a way as if it is, because it's just not. And it's not fair if you teach it that way, because then you're giving parents an idea that it does work that way. Because, again, parents aren't, like, geniuses. Like, just because you're a parent doesn't mean you suddenly know everything that you're talking about. Because, like, that's not how it works at all. So don't raise your kids in a way where they feel like that. Because it's not fair. And then you end up having people who, like, you know what I mean? You end up having people who, like, say that, like, hey, my child is, like, great, but they shouldn't be like this, and then that goes into other problems. Like, I think the common one is like, oh, thank God my child isn't gay. But then their child might be gay, and that's should be seen as fine. Like, you can't be like, good thing I got good luck and my child isn't this way, or even saying like, oh, thank God my child isn't like autistic or something. That still is just bad, wrong. Even if you can like somehow like prove they aren't autistic, it's still a bad thing to say, because you're just saying, oh, I wouldn't love my child if it was this way, but thank God I do, and then that's just bad, weird, wrong, and people still do it because people are bad, weird, and wrong. And so, you know, just be better than that. And then also another thing, I guess this is important to mention too. I like money, and I'm going to talk about money. See, money is important in any case. Everyone is always like, "Oh, money can't buy happiness," blah blah blah, whatever. But the thing is, it can, and since it can also buy your child happiness to some extent. Like, no, I'm not saying, oh, spoil your child, get them this and that, because then you end up with a stupid, ignorant child anyways. But you should have enough money to raise your child properly. If you're like, oh, I can barely afford my house, I can barely afford healthy food, I can barely afford this and that, don't have a child then. That's simple. And like, yeah, that's just, like, so many people seem to have kids, and then they're like, oh, I can't afford this kid. Then why would you have a kid? I mean, unless it's on accident, which then again, abortion should be allowed because of that reason. I'm gonna get, like, I can't be monetized, but Christ, am I gonna be demonetized from this. But, like, again, just, that's not how it should work at all, in any case, because that's not how, your child shouldn't be forced to endure what you set yourself up for enduring. Because the child didn't set themselves up for that. The child was just born into the world, and unfortunately you were their parents. And that's a real shame, isn't it? So, like, just don't force your child to live under those conditions. So again, you should probably get an abortion if you can. And don't just decide to have a child despite not being in the best financial state, because it's going to be awful for both you and that child, and it's just not fair at that point. So just be a better person, be kind to the child, and things will turn out great, things will turn out fine. But if you don't let that happen, then there will be problems. So just, what am I missing? Oh. So just, I'm gonna end the video here because it's been 20 minutes. Hopefully some of y'all stuck around to the end. I said a lot. I think I screwed up some of my words there in a lot of that. If you made it this far, you should probably like and subscribe because you did watch the entire video, so you may as well just take a little few seconds out of your day. Go do me a favor. Get my videos more recommended if you enjoy my amazing political commentary. If you didn't, let me know in the comments, because it still counts as a comment. Be as mean as you want, I don't give a damn. It still counts as a comment. And, you can hit the dislike button as well, because I can't see that anymore, so I don't need to know, and I don't get to know. And that's the video. Yeah, be better people, stay woke, hashtag, thanks for watching, good day.